Howdy folks, Bluesboy Jag here, another cigar box guitar. What? Howdy folks, Bluesboy Jag here, yet another cigar box guitar. I've said that 4,236 times, so this is number 4,237 since 2005. Red oak neck. As you can see, that shiny thing there is a humbucker pickup. That little sound hole right there is a sound hole. You don't need a big old honking sound hole to get some pretty good acoustic tones out of these small boxes. And a lot of people ask me, well, the sound hole's kind of small. How it works is scientific, blah, blah, blah. But this box, this cigar box, is maybe a quarter the size of an acoustic guitar. So, long story short, this sound hole is the same size as a bigger sound hole, or the same volume I should say, as a bigger sound hole on a regular acoustic guitar, because science. And that's pretty much the long and short of it. And y'all are like, what is he talking about? Long story short, small box, small sound hole. Big box, big sound hole. The other thing is, my necks go to about right here, and if I put a sound hole here, that kills the cool artwork. So, I could put a big old sound hole right here. It would be no louder than the current sound hole over here. And because the neck goes to about right there, I would have to put the sound hole right here and destroy the artwork. And 99.9% of the cigar boxes have the artwork smack dab in the middle, which makes sense. So there you go. That explains the sound hole. And I only put a volume knob on these for only one reason, because they're old school style, like Eddie Van Halen. These are kind of like hot rods. I look at the cigar box guitar as a hot rod. Now, if you really have to have a tone control, I can put one in there for an extra few bucks. But I think I probably had 2 or 3 people ask me about tone controls in 12 years. So I haven't had a lot of people who need one. But like I said, if you want one, I can put one in. I get a lot of questions about the bridge. Where's the confounded bridge? And why is it slanted? That seems like that would be messed up. But it's actually not, and here's how it works. Depending on how everything turns out, which means depending on the construction of the box and where the neck fits in and blah, 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 I may or may not have to slant that bridge to make it perfectly in tune. If you look at some of the Gibson guitars, just for an example, like the Les Paul Jr. and maybe the old S1. I used to have an S1. A lot of people don't remember that one because it was a short-lived, not a very good guitar. But a lot of the early Gibsons and maybe even Les Pauls, I know some of Les Pauls, have a compensated bridge or slanted bridge. Just like that right there. And this is a bolt, of course. Gibson doesn't use bolts, but I do for my cigar box guitars. So what that means is your strings are in tune all the way up the neck. And this slant right here, as it's slanting up towards that way, increases, or raises, I should say, raises the pitch of that string so that it's in tune on every fret. The middle one, as you can see, it's a little slanted that way, but it's not as far up as this one. Again, that string, due to science, the bridge has to be slanted back on that one a little bit further than that one, so that every note on that string all the way up to the 19th fret is perfectly in tune. And this one obviously is slanted even more. The bigger strings sometimes need to be slanted more backwards, back towards the back of the guitar, in order to ensure that that string's notes, all of them, all the way up to the 19th fret, are perfectly in tune. So long story short, sometimes you gotta slant the bridge. Sometimes they're straight across. Not sure why, but I use a tuner, digital tuner, when I put my neck on and put the strings on to determine exactly where that bridge goes. If I move this bridge up, quarter of an inch more, way too sharp. If I move this quarter of an inch back, way too flat. Got to be just right. And those screws hold the tailpiece in, and those screws hold the strings in. Now, I've had some people ask me about the strings and how they're attached, and wondering, it seems kind of janky. Not so sure. Well, it actually works really well. And when I was first making these cigar box guitars, I had made some fretless guitars with the neck sticking out, like a lot of people do when they start out, and I just did not like that end of the neck sticking out through the rear of the guitar. These were all the way through the box, and they were transducer pickups, which you can put right on top of the neck inside the box, and it works fine. But when I went to the single coils and the humbuckers, those are embedded in the box, so you can't have a neck all the way through. And the other thing was, I just really didn't like the end of the neck sticking out here. So a lot of people, when they do have the neck sticking out the rear, they just put holes and the strings come up through the bottom, just like a Telecaster, through the bottom of the neck and then over. But when I changed that many years ago, I had to come up with a new way of doing it, and I kind of sweated because I was like, well, I'm not sure how to do this because I have to have these perfectly in tune and they have to stay in tune. Oh well, let's just go ahead and try to put some bolts in the end of the guitar, and we'll just wrap the strings through their end hole there, and we'll just see what we get. And darned if it didn't work beautifully. I mean, they stay in tune. Not a problem whatsoever. Bend the notes all over the place. They stay in tune perfectly. So don't let that worry you. It looks kind of old school, but hey, it's a cigar box guitar. And I have a couple extra screws here. Some people asked me about the screws. Those just clamp the lid tight, very tight, very tight. So no rattling. And if you press on these boxes and it's not just super tight clamped down, just super tight, all you gotta do is squeeze it and you get a little wow wow. And when you're playing live on stage, that ain't gonna cut it. So I put those extra bolts in there and crank it on down. And those screws right there in front of the bridge, back to the bridge, those screws in front of the bridge dictate exactly where that slant is. Exactly. Did I say exactly? Exactly. Isn't she pretty? Aroma de Cuba. Red oak neck, 19 frets. Some of my guitars have fewer frets for the longer boxes. I think this might have 17 or 18. I don't know. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. It's got 16. So the shorter boxes that are, going about here, an inch or two shorter, are going to have 17, 18, 19 frets. So, I mean, obviously I can't put more frets up here. So that's how that works. Now we got the old school bolt strap holders. Looks really cool. Shiny. And I do put a shit ton, oops, did I say shit? Sorry, I said shit. I put a shit ton of polyurethane on these, probably, depending on the box. Some of the boxes are more porous, so they soak up a lot of that. I put 10 to 20 coats on, and it takes about 2 to 3 days for them to soak in and dry. On this particular one, it already had a little, light dusting of the polyurethane. And so I put about 4 or 5 coats on these. Again, it takes about a day or two to dry, and that protects your artwork. So when you're strumming, people strum like that. Protects the artwork. Signed and numbered. This one goes to 11. Numbered. Obviously 3 strings. Bluesboy Jag logo. Old school bolts for the string trees. Works perfectly. Alright, so too much yakking. Cuba 3-string humbucker cigar box guitar by Bluesboy Jag. That's me. Bluesboy Jag. Bluesboy, all one word. Jag, J-A-G, like Jaguar, comes from last name Jagich. Jagshouse.com. Jagshouse.com. I think I've had too much coffee. Doodles.